Hey guys, Brandon with Whiskey River, and it's another axe number 4 of Axetober. This isn't really an axe; it's a Pulaski, but it's a Kelly's World Finest Pulaski, and it's in very, very, very good shape. It says $200 on here. I did not pay $200, but the fancy part is when you flip it around, stamped FS. So Forest Service spec, true temper. It's just in really good shape. It most likely hung out on a truck its whole life. But it's old, and it's cool. And we're going to hang it on our long, super long, 40-inch double bit handle that we offer on the website. We don't offer any longer of handles. 40 inches is as long as we get. So, as you can see here, we are going to have to remove a little bit of material from that and get it set down there. But I want to use this thing before we auction it. So, axe number 4, here we go. When it's this far off, I usually try to hold it up and kind of get a gauge of how much material I'm going to need to remove by kind of just eyeballing it. And I'm going to go ahead and just mark this, see if I can get it inside the head. Do it like this. There. Right there. So this one is, let's see, it's 2.5 about. Yeah, and a little bit over 2.5. This is actually stamped 3.3, so it's 3 3/4 pound overall. And yeah, so we're gonna start removing some material. Now I have when we have this much material to remove, I prefer to use an angle grinder with flap disc. It goes quick, and then we can finish it out with a Shinto rasp, like that, and some sandpaper. So, but as far as working at a workbench like this and not having a belt sander, I just take these two off, then and then start taking off the sides, and I'll use it. Maybe I'll use the angle grinder, but maybe I'll use the Shinto rasp. We'll see once we get to there. So here we go. I always do whatever I do on one side, I do on the other side. It's one of those things. Just kind of match it, keep it even. There we go. Check it out. Squared off ends there. This handle is definitely oversized. We leave these oversized to help with any different size head, because like the Pulaski's got a little bit smaller of an eye than most stuff, but you can get into the big double bits that have full 3-inch eyes. I'm looking for a pencil. Yeah, the issue with this is that it's too... I'm going to try this. I'm going to put Sharpie on the edge, on the corner. Make sure it's still wet. And see if it will. No, it doesn't. It's not going to touch it. Nope. Bad idea. But with these narrow eyes, it's hard to get a pencil in there all the way down to be able to trace the inside of there. So we're just going to eyeball it. It should go fine. We're going to take some material off both sides of the end with the angle grinder and see what happens. Just sizing it up slowly but surely. We're going to go at it with the Shinto a little bit. This is why I like these swivel vices, because you can set the handle down on the actual bench. Otherwise, if it's squared up with the workbench, it just hangs out and you get this to wobble around a bunch. But as you're sanding, it's like pressing down on that, which helps stabilize it. Is it gonna go? It's so close. So close. Here, come and look at it from this side. It's like about to go. You can see. So, yeah, I always look at this and I always think, oh, that's a really big eye, but it's actually pretty narrow as far as thickness from side to side. As you can tell, the last these three, went pretty quick. Those were handles that seemed to go in pretty fast. And not every hand goes like that. Also, one thing I just got called out on YouTube for was people are like, the rasp doesn't work on the backstroke. But if you've got these like fuzzies that happen, like in here, you can backstroke and they just come off. That's the reason for the backstroke on this. It just kind of like brushes them off. Instead of picking this up every time like this, I'm not pushing on the backstroke. But it's just like anything with a file. You're not wanting to press down on the backstroke, but you can let it glide across. There's nothing wrong. This wood is definitely not going to hurt this rasp if they go backwards. Just kind of tapering it this way so that, I'll show you, so that when it starts slipping down, we can just work our way down and make it as thick or as thin as we want. A lot of our replacement handles are already kind of pre-tapered, so that way you guys don't have to do that. But yeah, we've got it started here. Let's make some marks. There we go. There's still red paint inside this, believe it or not. So we've got our marks here. Those are showing where it's rubbing. Black on the backside. So we'll just keep sanding away. I'm actually going to use this a little bit just to speed up the process, because there is a decent amount of material sitting here that I can see. And we'll get to it. There we go, we got it started. It's going on a little further. There we go. Back to the rasp. Oh yeah, it's going on a little crooked, but it'll go on straighter once that tongue gets through there. You can see in here that the kerf has been closed, because there is a kerf cut, but it's being squeezed shut. So that's something to take into consideration. Either widening the kerf with a saw cut, or taking more material off the sides and getting it to be able to have a little bit of space in there as we throw the wedge in. I'll show you. There we go. All right. You can see our line. We're getting somewhere. So I'm going to go ahead and remove a bunch of material here, kind of parallel down with this, continuing that line down, and that'll help us be able to carve the shoulder into that. I'll show you this. It's basically what I meant by making that parallel down. It still tapers out here, but I want to leave that so that we don't have any gaps in the bottom of the eye. But made it straighter, took a lot of material out of there. So we'll take some material off the sides and then slowly but surely getting there. I'm gonna really put it on there. Let's see what happens. Oh yeah. Got the curl going. I'm really enjoying this comically large mallet. All right. Just continue to take some material off here. We got a long ways to go to get it down in here. So it's not going on as easy as I would like, but that's just I'm very well versed in hanging single bits. The double bits I have a little bit more problem with just because I don't hang as many of them. All right, had to take the hoodie off. I was sweating. It's one of those days you wake up and it's cold, and then halfway through the day you're hot. to start marking the front of the handle and the back of the handle so I don't keep switching this head around. That's something that's important to do on double bits, especially when you get to this step. I probably should have been doing it from the beginning, but I just make a dot on the handle in the front and a dot on the handle or on the head, and then I know that those two match up. Otherwise you're fighting yourself. You're like, oh, the gap's in the front, and then you put the handle on backwards. Plus when you're flipping this thing around, since it is this shape, it's just hard to tell. So I'm actually gonna try it on the other way and see how that works. I might actually go with that. Super snug on the sides, which is good, but need to still take some material off. We're getting there. All right, let's see. This goes this way. Yeah. Starting to poke through. Little on the high side. So we got an open hang here. Or an open hang. We want this to be tipped down. We want the top to be relatively flat across it. So let's see if we can. The easiest way on a double bit is to do the exact thing that I was talking about, where you just switch it around and see if that's how it lands. If you can get it to set that way. So we'll see here, actually. It's better. Wail on it a couple times. Yeah, a little bit better. So I'm going to pull a little bit of material off the front here where it's curling. You can see here. That'll help tip that down. We got space in the back. Cool thing about double bits is you can cut the wedge long, kind of size it so that and shape it so it fits into these corners, and you'll get a good, nice fit. So even though there are gaps in the front and the back, you can fill that up with the wedge. Okay, so this is the front. So before I really get this thing set down, I'm going to clamp this kerf cut shut in the vise and then resaw it, and that'll widen it, make it a little bit bigger so we can actually get a wedge in there, and I can get the head. I can get the kerf cut deep enough for that head. So come over here and look at this. This is the bottom of the head, and this is the top of the head. It'll set down a little bit further just because I'm going to sand this and it might shrink down a little bit. But you want this line to come down 2/3 of this distance. So you want it to be, if those are thirds, you want that wedge to come at least to here. Some guys want it just a little bit more. So we got to make sure that that kerf cut's deep enough that we can actually get a wedge down in there. Now, if you want, you can cut the top of this off, which is probably what you would do if you were working on a smaller head that's a little bit shorter, but we're going to try to not do that. So the reason why you would cut the top off would be so that you can get the wedge to set further down in there, but I think we'll be good since we're using a full-size double bit wedge, and those are like 3 inches tall, I believe, 2 7/8, something like that. So the easiest way to make this kerf wider, right, because it's all shrunk, it's all squeezed closed, right, but it's a table saw width, is you come over here and you clamp it shut all the way. Right, like this. You can see it. It closes up like that, and you can make your saw cut down that. It's not the easiest thing to do in the world, but it is possible, and it doesn't take that long. Especially because the saw does want to fall kind of into that that line that's already there. You can do this as many times as you want. You can clamp this shut again if you want, make it even wider. I'm just going to do one saw cut, one saw width, but it is something that you can replicate over and over again if you want. And now I'm just going to go down to this line, which is very faint. And then that'll be 2/3 down. Read it. Okay, so you can see that line's down to there. So that's where we want our wedge to be able to go down to. Now I'm gonna sponge this with the sanding sponge and see if I can clean up some of these rasp marks before the head is in there. Then we'll go try for our final fitment. There we go. That's where we're gonna be. Let's get a wedge. What size wedge should we? Let's do a. See, I got a walnut. Do I have a walnut? Yep. We'll grab a walnut wedge. So it doesn't. You can see how this wedge is almost the same size as the eye. So that's what I'm talking about, is we can drive a wedge in that's a little bit bigger than the handle, and it'll take up those gaps in the top of the eye. So I'm just marking this here. That'll give us the width that we need. There we go. That's started. All right, so I got my wedge started in there. It's tight in the front, tight in the back, and we're gonna drive her in, see what happens. Got a crack. There we go. Bottomed out. Do one more. Yeah, there we go. All right, I think that's bottomed out. Or we can't go any further, I guess. So we got some cracking in the top, right, where the wedge cracked. Once you cut that off, it's really, really hard to see that. It's not like it's something that you're going to notice once you get that. I mean, maybe you will, but we'll cut it off and I'll show you. I will show you. There we go. Look at the top of that. You can't really see any cracks or anything, even though that wedge was split apart in a bunch of spots. So we'll sand this level. Cut that a little weird. Get in here and cut up these curlies that are off of here. There we go. There we go. Just gonna go to the side a little bit. See what the bottom of the head looks like. But there's your wedge, all wedged up. You want to have that, you know, like this, by us cutting that kerf a little bit wider, it allowed us to get a little bit wider of a wedge in there. If we didn't open up that kerf, that wedge would be just super thin and skinny, and I see those online a lot. Guys are like, hey, check out my hang, but the wedge is only 1/8 of an inch. It's like you want to get as much wood in there as you can. I need a new blade on this. On this knife. There you go. Let's oil it. There it is. There it is. All oiled up. So here we are with the 40-inch. Here we are with the 40-inch Kelly World's Finest Pulaski 3.3 Forest Service spec Pulaski. So, what did we do so far? We've gotten day 1. This is day 4. Day 1 was this contraption of an axe with these bolted on parts. Still haven't swung it yet. Day 2 was the True Temper Flint Edge USA stamped hatchet. And day 3 was the Craftsman on the 19HC, making a little house axe here. So there we go. We've got every day of October is getting an axe done, and that's why we're calling it Axetober. And we will be auctioning them off on bid.whiskeyrivertrading.com, which is our standalone auction site where we auction off axes and tool collections. So check us out, bid.whiskeyrivertrading.com. Download the app, Android or Apple, and or you can check it out on browser. Be good, stay sharp, and see you tomorrow.